Hi, I'm Mark from Kicker, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to use Kicker to create and modify ranges. So we'll start from this point here, the Preflop range builder. There is already a separate video. If you go into this screen and click on that button, you'll get a video that shows you how to use this screen to arrange and move around your ranges and put them into a folder structure. I'm not going to demonstrate that in this video. I'm going to demonstrate how you actually edit the ranges and create them. So if I just expand this out here, we've got what I've set up as my PokerStars ranges, my opening ranges. If I select opening ranges and select add opening range, and in this case I'm going to call this hijack open, and it will create me a blank range. Now if I hit edit range, we come in here and we have a blank range to start with, and there are all kinds of different ways in which we can construct this range. So the first way is you can use this kind of standard shorthand that you might have seen used in other pieces of software such as PokerStove, which I will just paste in. So you can see this is a range that I created with PokerStove, which is all Broadway, all pocket pairs and all aces. And if you then click set from shorthand, you can see that immediately you can transfer ranges from other pieces of software. And also you could copy, if you've created a range in here, you could copy that and then import it into other pieces of software as well. So that's one way in which you can do that. I'm just going to hit undo here. You have full undo redo when you're in this screen. So anything that you do, you can undo, you can redo, you can go back and forth. And if you've made a mistake a few steps ago, you can go back and modify it. There are other ways in which you can define what you want your range to be. You've got all of these buttons here, so you could hit Broadway, you could hit suited aces, unsuited aces, pocket pairs, suited connectors, suited gappers, even hit all if you want and highlight everything. You can do suited Broadway, you can do unsuited Broadway for the kind of broad categories of hands. If you want to specifically select certain hands, you can go in and just click on them like that, using the left click. If you wanted to, for example, you might want to come in and say pocket aces. For some reason you might want to, actually pocket aces is probably a bad example, but let's say there was another hand here, like, I don't know, 10-7 suited, let's say. So we look at 10-7 suited, and we might want to open with that hand 50% of the time, but not open with it 50% of the time. It might be one of those ones that you want to add into your mix from your hijack sometimes, but not always. So you can just put in a partial combo for that, which means that when it's used in later analysis, it will only be in at a 50% rate rather than an 100% rate. So you can do that if you like. You can also use this create range using hand history tool. So there is a separate video about the hand history tool. If I just select this now, it takes us to the hand history tool. And again, there's a video about this. If you click on find out more about this feature on this screen, you'll see that video and show you how this all works. Here, what I've done is I've selected hero position hijack, and I've set all the parameters up. So what this is doing is from my hand histories, it's pulling out a range for me, for my typical opening, if I eliminate the bottom 20% of hands, so hands that I only open with very, very infrequently with this slidey bar here, set it to about 20%. And these are the hands that I typically open with at least 20% of the time from the hijack, from my actual hand histories. And if you hit OK, you can import that directly into this range, and you can make that your range, which you can then use for analysis elsewhere. I'm just going to clear it again. There is another subscreen you can go to, View Preflop Player Pool Tendencies. And again, there's a separate video for this if you were to click on that button in the application. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to go, this is looking at what the player pool does for the hijack. And there's an open of 20.1%. I'm just going to hit Get Range. And this takes me to this here, which is the hands that get to Showdown for players who open from the hijack in the kind of frequencies they're seen at Showdown. I'll just knock out the bottom, say 20% or thereabouts, 21%. Hit Copy Range, close that, hit OK, and then hit Paste Range. And you can see there's now a bunch of partial ranges that have been imported that are representative of the kind of hands that players who open from the hijack get to showdown with. If you're looking at this and thinking, well, I don't really want those in as partials, I mean, you can just hit this plus button a few times, and this plus button just slowly, incrementally just fills all of those combos until they all get to 100 if that's what you want, or you might just want to up them slightly and still have some of them as semi-partials. You could push them all the way up to the top to get a range like that. And as discussed in the video for the pre-flop player pool tendencies, you do need to take those hands that turn up at showdown with a little bit of a pinch of salt. It's explained in more detail in the video. But as a starting point for trying to build a range, it's available for you. There is another way that you can, if I just go back in again, I just cancelled that, so if I just hit edit range again, there is another way that you can define ranges, and it's using this little slidey bar here. This uses the Sklansky-Carlson hand rankings, which are a widely used way of trying to determine rankings of hands. They are used in other pieces of software as well. And if you take this slidey bar and slide it up, it will just start to fill in the hands in the order that Sklansky-Carlson have determined they are the most strong. So if you wanted, say, 50% of hands, you can see over here we've got percentage of total starting hands 50.5%. You could just use that, and that will just give you a Sklansky-Carlson representation of 50% of all hands. So that's another way you can do it. Also, if you, I'm just going to clear this. If you want to select certain areas of hands, so if you hold down the shift button, as I am now doing, and then press Broadway, you'll see that what this has done is it hasn't selected those hands, it's just highlighted them. And now you could come in and you could make those all partial if you like. You can do the same for, say, pocket pairs. If I hold down shift now, pocket pairs, you can see that as I'm pressing up now, they're all going to be 55, 60, 65, 70%, and so on. So you can do it like that. If you want, if you hold down the shift button and just individually click on hands, you can highlight any arbitrary set of hands you like and then apply partial opening ranges to all of them. So that shows you how to define opening ranges, and of course, as I said at the start, you've got the undo button, so you can just go back and undo everything that you've done all the way back to anything that you to any previous edit point that you want to get to. Okay, just quickly, I'm also going to show the responding ranges. So if I come in here and I define a responding range, so let's call this, I'll just call it response 1, just because this is a demo really, and hit edit range. You'll see that this screen is largely the same. There are a few extra little bits of information down here. It's giving you information about the total starting hands raised and the total starting hands continued, because that's relevant information for if you're doing a responding range. You also have the ability to put in raise information and call information rather than bet information here. So the main differences are, for example, there might be a hand like, say, 10-9 suited, if we highlight that hand there, and that might be a hand that you want to call with 50% of the time, but you want to raise with 20% of the time, and you want to fold with 30% of the time. And you can see there that it's blue where you're calling, it's purple where it's raising, and it's just left grey where it's folding. There are some ranges where you may want to have hands that you do all three different things with, so the ability is in there for you to do that. And also, these slidey bars that we have for the Sklansky-Carlson, if we use that, you can see that you could slide down to, like we did in the other one, down to say around about 50%, but then if you slide the raise bar, that's going to turn some of these hands purple, and they're all hands that are going to be raised with. So that then overrides the fact that they were originally going to be called with. So in this particular range here, what we set is 50% of hands are going to be continued with, but 8% of them are going to be raised, and 42% of them are going to be called with. If we hit OK, you can see that's how it's defined, that range. So this is how you define ranges in Kicker.